Morning, Rucker.
Morning, Paulie.
Episode 4 time.
Finally made it.
It's here. Hey, listen, last few episodes we've asked people, hey, what do you want to hear about? Yep. What topics do you want to hear about? What kind of deep dive could you guys listen to, or would you guys like to listen to? And we've had a few suggestions.
Yes, we absolutely have.
Okay.
So one that came, actually it was through LinkedIn, was Lucky, who's a variable manager at another dealership. The question was, what do I need to know about service? And I think as we expand upon it, it's more, what does anybody need to know about service? What does your parts manager need to know? What does your variable manager need to know? Finance, salesperson, kind of the whole thing. So
sure.
Kind of in line with what we've been doing is just doing a generalized what is service, what are some of the topics, so that we can keep that for now, and then we'll deep dive it as we go.
Yeah. I like that. As I'm thinking back, service was not really a thing, right? Most GSMs and GMs come out of variable or new and used car sales. The service piece is like, scary back there. I know nothing about it. I'll just stay out of there. That's a big mistake.
Huge mistake. And, thinking back to this question, we brought it up in our profit. We brought it up in our leads episode. Every single department's connected. So every single department needs to know more about the other departments.
Yeah.
And haven't done many interviews with the fixed side, but was sitting in an interview yesterday. And it was very fun, sitting with a fixed guy and me that's mostly variable learning fixed, how much it relates back and forth. So this is very cool topic.
Yeah,
excited about it.
I absolutely love it, right? So, we've also mentioned in prior episodes, you walk into your building every morning through what department?
Service.
Why?
Because
you want to get to know your people. And I think that's where we start.
Absolutely.
Right? So Lucky, I do appreciate the fact that you reached out to us, number one. And number two, I love the topic. So great call. If you walk back through your service department every morning, you walk into the building through your service department, your techs, by the way, love it. The general sales manager here, the variable manager is here. Hey, how are you? That conversation, because if you think about it, they're in the back of the building, not customer facing, working on a car all day. That's got to be boring. Yeah. So to see a human walk through the door, it's like, hey, how are you? Right?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, but it's very true. And you can tell the healthier store too, right? If the shop is empty, if there's nobody in your service lane, I can tell you my day really gets decided by what I see. And wherever you see the most activity may not be where you need to spend your day. So, sometimes if it's a slower day, I tend to spend a little more time back there. But if it's a busy day, also spend time back there. But sometimes you just get in the way. So it's kind of interesting. You kind of set your day by it too.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I absolutely cannot work on a car. I absolutely cannot do that. But I can tell you all of my technicians' names.
Yep.
I can tell you all of my advisors' names. I can tell you what their frustrations are, by the way, because every morning you walk in and you talk to them, they'll tell you their frustrations.
Oh, yeah.
They can't wait to see you. In the advisor meetings, can we start off by just talking about those real quick?
Yes.
I don't know how many variable managers have ever been to an advisor meeting, but it's quite similar, isn't it, to a sales meeting? I think it's so similar it's not funny, right? Do salespeople do walkarounds to sell cars?
They do.
Do service advisors do walkarounds to sell time?
Yep.
But isn't the process kind of the same? Could they do meetings together? Do they have to follow up with their customers? Do they have to set appointments? Do they have to get coached, taught, and mentored in the same kind of way as a salesperson? So isn't it kind of similar?
Yeah, it is. The more that you talk about it, I think it's getting everybody to understand how similar these departments are. Because again, the body shop's always been an island. The service department's been kind of an island, but mostly you don't see that intermingling between departments. And, we did a walk-around contest for our sales staff. How well can they point out all the different items on a car, and what does that presentation look like? Now, this year, we're actually going to do a service walk-around competition. So kind of the same thing.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah, and it's, we're trying to expand a couple of different areas. So, during that walk around, we're looking for damage, both to help the customer and give them a quote going forward, but also to protect both sides too, right?
Sure.
What happened is, there's a scratch on my car. Where did it come from? At least, it's not that we don't want to pay. It's that we want to make sure that the accountability is on the right side.
Sure.
So at that point, hey, no scratches, you do have a perfect car, and then when you pick it up, there's a scratch. Listen, that's what the walk around was for.
Yeah.
We pointed it out, we didn't point it out, then it opens the liability. But the tires, the brakes, we have a paintless dent repair gentleman that can do them, most of the time when you're in service, or sometimes I've got to move the schedule around a little bit. But that's another thing that, that door ding that you got, you don't want to set a separate appointment for it. So while you're here, that's another service that we can take care of. So there's a lot of things. And again, the customer goes, oh yeah, it does make a funny noise. Can you look at that? When you're saying, oh, it looks like you've got some uneven wear on your tires, they're choppy, whatever it might be, it opens the door to many other conversations.
100%.
Yep.
Couldn't agree with you more. And to go back to Lucky's point, right? What does a variable manager need to know? I would start by saying this. Know your advisors, know your lane manager, your service manager's needs, and know how you can help them. That's what I would tell you. If you walk into your service department in the morning, coming in, and your lane manager or your service manager or both are in the lane, that's who you hang out with. And by the way, they better be in the lane.
Yes.
Okay? We have a great lane manager at the store that you personally work at.
Yeah.
He's in the lane all day. I don't think I've ever seen him not in the lane. He's greeting the customers as they pull into the lane, asking them what they need the second they walk in, how he can help them, meeting them at their car. And that's where it starts. And then that walk around takes off when the advisor walks up. But knowing your advisors, knowing what they need for what can you do for your advisor, I think is where you start.
For sure. And I think keeping, what can I do for my advisor? Training would be a huge piece of it. Mm-hmm. So, you're doing your sales training. We train our sales staff on phones, phone etiquette, how to follow up. What is the goal of a phone call? You do the same thing for your service department. Your advisors are doing the exact same thing. They're both, service and sales. They're both talking to customers.
Yeah.
They both have customers that are bringing up something that they need or want, whether it's a repair on a vehicle or purchasing a car. So those are parallel. And then the same thing is they both need to come in to accomplish what their end goal is, whether it's test driving a car or dropping it off for service.
Yes.
So setting the appointment is the goal of a phone call, no matter if it's in service or it's in sales. So we should be training them together. So, what a great opportunity for somebody in variable to spend more time in service. Either bring your sales training back to service or bring your service training up to sales. Combine them. That's a great way to just get involved in service without taking additional time or trying to learn something new in the process.
I love that. When you train together, every time we do this, by the way, do we do what we're talking about?
Yes.
Yes. Every time we do this, it boggles my mind on the ideas that are come up with are usually from the opposite department.
Yep.
Because when you're talking specifically about somebody pulling into the lane, greeting them at their car, and turning that into a walk around, it's usually the salesperson that goes, you know what you should do? You know what I would do if I was you? But then when we talk about the sales process and whatever part of it we're talking about, it's usually the advisor going, if I was selling the car, I would do, and the salesperson, I never even thought of that.
Right.
It's so funny how the opposite will do it because you're not living in it every day. It's like that outside perspective.
Sure.
So important to combine those sales trainings. The biggest thing that I always run into at any store when I say, hey, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And it's always, not always, mostly how can I manage my day better?
Yeah.
This phone's always going. There's always somebody in front of me. How can I manage my day better?
Yeah.
And it's funny when they say that, the first thing I think of, same thing in sales.
Correct.
How can we manage their days? How can we get more people in front of them? And how can we sell or take care of our customers better?
Yeah.
Right? And I always tell the advisors as well, if you can set yourself a time every day, even if it's on your calendar, if it's on your phone, or however you want to set up a reminder, here's when I'm going to do my status calls. Because aren't status calls the very thing that people struggle with? The customers get so frustrated. Hey, I haven't heard from you.
Yeah.
What's going on with my car? Isn't that the majority of the calls coming in?
The biggest volume by far. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep, no doubt. And if you could find a way, whatever that is for you, I always try to help the people, hey, at 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock is the two times I recommend the most.
Yep.
In the morning, you're crazy. You're getting everybody checked in. You're getting everybody taken care of, whether they need a shuttle ride back to work, whether they need a loaner car, which we can talk about loaners if we
Yes,
want to.
yeah.
It's a big topic for us. But after that morning rush is over, you need to do your status calls from the day before. Talk to every single open RO that you have that's not closed. I'm just going to give them an update. There might be no change. Tell them that, okay? Let them know, hey, listen, nothing's changed. We're still waiting on that part. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, while you're on the topic of phone calls, the other one that I was thinking of was what we changed at our store, the after service call, right? If you're talking about best timeline for phone calls, the status call is super important, but also adding in that CSI call at the end.
Ooh.
So we switched to, now service still does CSI calls, but we switched to sales after the RO is closed. Customer has their car, it's fixed, everything is already done. We then have the sales department call. So it's just the variable managers that we have calling. So sales, finance, GSM, GM. We all call, and the whole purpose is not to sell anything. It's just purely, how was your experience? Great to hear that everything went well, or this didn't happen. But the main goal is making sure that the customer is happy, and we always throw some sort of reminder. Hey, by the way, if this comes up,
Yes.
just wanted to remind you, and our main focus has been body shop. And it's interesting, I didn't know you had a body shop. There was a guy that did an estimate on my car. I'm going to give him a call. Or do they do inspections before I turn my lease in? So it's created a lot of new extra questions that we didn't know about.
Oh,
but
I love that.
if there's some sort of sales initiative, you can throw that in there. Or, I mean, again, the goal is not to sell them anything. It's just a phone call to follow up with them. And when a customer hears a phone call that's not a sales call,
Yes.
it's a huge win and a huge change in the dynamic too.
Yeah. You just started that, a few months ago?
Maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago.
Month and a half, 2 months ago,
Yeah.
and it's already turning into, oh my gosh, didn't realize, wish we would have.
Yep.
These are the kind of things that can take you from good to great. If you have a finance manager calling somebody that did a service yesterday, even if it's as simple as an oil change, to say thank you, how did we do? What does that customer feel? They feel like they're important.
Yeah.
Right? Wow,
Absolutely.
this guy's calling to check on me to see how this went. Now this all turns into my favorite word, retention.
Yeah.
When that retention number starts climbing, holy cow, that's when you go from good to great.
And we talked about that in episode 2 with leads.
Yes.
Right? The bulk of your customers that are coming into your service department, if you have a very aggressive service department, didn't buy from you. So then that's where you can then pivot the leads. Instead of a cold call, it's a lukewarm thank you call that could turn into it. We've had body shop work, we've had sales come out of it, we've had trades come out of it. Because again, at that point, when you're not selling the customer, their nerves are down. They're just open to talking. And again, that goes back to we're consultants. We're not salespeople.
Yes. You know, because you're bringing that up, I'm going to pivot for just a second.
Yeah.
For years in the car business, and I've been in it 19. I think you've been in it how long?
17?
17, so we're
Yeah.
very close. We always talk about, did you introduce your sales, the sale that you've done up front to the service department and show them the service department and walk them through the service. Hey, this is where you're going to come when you do have service. When you do the first oil change, there's where you're going to pull in. Here's the advisors. Actually, I'm going to introduce you to an advisor and set your first oil change appointment now.
Yeah.
So we get all that done. But how much do we talk about service to sales? The opposite way.
Right.
It drives me crazy that we need to, and we still have it, and we need to still perfect this process. So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about, okay, so how many sales, let's use it just as an example.
Yeah.
On a typical day of a larger store,
Right.
how many sales do they do in a day? Typically, just on average, new and used combined.
30?
Okay.
Plus or minus.
Yeah. So let's say the number's 30.
Yeah.
That same kind of a store with 30 sales in a day, new and used combined. How many ROs on average at a store that size
Yeah.
would there be in a day?
About 100.
So 100 ROs a day in service come through your service department. Usually 7 out of 10 of them, 6 to 7 out of 10 of them didn't buy from you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not focused on the 100 people being introduced to the sales department, but we're very worried about the 30 being introduced to the service department. You do
yeah.
see the miss.
Yes. And I think a lot of that's caused because most of our general managers in the automotive world come up the variable side. So most of
So true.
most of our directives come from the variable side. So it was funny when we first started realizing this was, yeah, I mean, okay, we're retaining the customer, which is the most important part,
Sure.
right? When you look at profit margins and everything else, you need to have the customer from start to finish. But at the same time, you don't want to risk losing any piece of that customer's automotive life cycle. So the main goal is, okay, we've been servicing them well, but did their salesperson leave? Did they drive by somewhere that had a flashier sign that keeps sticking in their head?
Yes.
Or they saw payment that was lower? Or we were advertising trucks and they were advertising sedans? Whatever the story is, they could defect and buy somewhere else. So it's a very important piece. And what do I do as a variable manager to get involved in service? Get in there. Talk to those customers. Get involved. The easiest one is if you're not doing appraisals in your service lane, you've got to start. That's a super easy way for a variable manager. It starts the conversation. I just want to buy your car. Customers are kind of used to it at this point, but I mean, we all know that getting inventory is very difficult. It doesn't matter if you're a new car manager, if you're a used car manager, if you're a finance manager. If you start, again, every department's connected. If you start with the appraisal in the service lane, it's a super easy way to transition into turning it into a sales opportunity because you can buy the car, and they need to trade it on something else, whatever it might be. It's a logical sales conversation to have with somebody in the service department.
Yeah. In most variable manager know the process of appraising a car.
Yeah.
Even if it's a new variable manager. Well, variable manager means you should be able to do both. So now, okay, how do I get myself inserted if I'm a variable manager into service? Man, I'm going to go back there and appraise everybody's car that comes through, and I'm going to talk to each of those guests that come in. Yep. What a great way to insert yourself as a variable manager into service with something you already know how to do.
Yeah.
Right? So let's walk through that a second.
Yep.
So should I offer every customer that drives in an appraised value of their vehicle, or should I call the day before and ask people if they would like a value on their vehicle before they come in? Let's talk about that for a second. What do you believe is the right process to get your customers' numbers on their vehicles?
So for me, it's early and often. So I like to, when you set the appointment, to bring it up. I like when you do the confirmation call the night before to bring it up. When they're in the service lane to bring it up. Just because, you meet people at different times. When they call to set the appointment, they're most concerned about getting their service done. So when you at least bring it up, you're not asking for it. You're just saying, oh, by the way, while you're here, we do offer free appraisals. If you happen to see somebody and you're curious, just let them know. Then when you do the confirmation phone call the night before, you're calling and saying, hey, very excited to see you tomorrow for your oil change at 7. Oh, by the way, we are offering free appraisals. Would you be interested in one when you come in? Ours, we have a sign up. And then we also have somebody in the service lane doing the appraisals. I'm just going to be walking around your car today. You'll have a free appraisal waiting if it's something that you're interested in. And again, it just gives you several ways to just do soft contacts to bring it up and offer it to them.
Do you ever have people say, no, I do not want you to offer me a dollar value on my vehicle? Do you ever have people say no?
So beforehand, yes, because they think we're going to drive it and do everything else, but we don't have to. It's in for service. You get a free inspection while it's in service, so I think it eases their minds a little bit, but very rarely, and it's only ever if it's a misunderstanding.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because as I'm thinking, as you're walking through your process, which I love your process, by the way, I watched it work, I think to myself, why would somebody say no to that? Mm-hmm. Because if they don't like the number, they don't have to take it. Yeah. The only thing that pops into my mind is maybe you would offend somebody with a number that they think's too low, but why would they care, right?
It's happened, right? Well, because now you're negotiating. Because if you give a number and they don't like it, now you've started a conversation. Because, again, there's tons of online appraisal companies that will put numbers on them. And, again, that's probably a different episode that we need to go through, right? Sure. The difference between your online number doesn't matter who it is, what .com company it is. They put the number on it. It rarely is the same versus these are actual values. So there does need to be a little bit of educating as you're doing them because the offense should only come from a difference in opinions. It should never come to a difference of facts. So that's just educating the customer and making sure that they understand what your process is versus the .com process.
Of all, I hear people say, so do I need to have a full-time person back there then appraising cars? I would tell you that, first of all, if you do it the right way, there are several different avenues you could take this. You could have a sales consultant every single day, like a rotation of sales consultants that are in the service lane every morning. Because remember, when are you visiting service? Almost all service departments open at
7:30.
And should you have a consultant there at that time?
Yeah.
You really should. I mean, think about it. Now, you don't have to have the same consultant there every day, but you should have a rotation, and there should be a fist fight over who gets to work there the next day, because those are fresh leads. Remember, if 6 or 7 out of 10 of those people didn't buy cars from you, those are great opportunities for the sales. They're already at your store.
Yeah.
They're in person. They're live. Getting a warm body is huge, right? Or do you have your advisors as your service lane buyers, right? Your advisors equipped, especially on a smaller scale store, right? When there's only, 30 or 40 ROs a day, and you have 3 advisors, for instance. Those advisors can maybe have time to put numbers for you and talk to the customers about going up front to talk to the used car manager or the variable manager, whatever. There's tons of different processes that you could use, but find yours.
Yes.
Figure one out, because the potential to buy 10, 30 cars a month out of your service lane is there.
Oh, yeah.
You just have to go get it.
Yeah, it's huge. And, we actually just switched this process in our store. We did have a full-time person, and we're one of the only stores with enough volume that can afford to have one. But then it comes back to that disconnect between the person that does it and the person that ends up selling the vehicle or buying the vehicle. So we found, and again, this will change, a year from now.
Sure.
But we're giving the opportunity to the sales staff that are looking for leads, more customers. So we're actually restricting who's allowed to go in there, because we want people that need the business, want the business, that have the time to spend with those clients.
Sure.
Too. So we'll find out as the weeks go on if that was a good decision or a bad decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then if you do acquire a vehicle out of the service lane, don't you have the service history?
Yes.
Is that important when you sell the car up front? When you put a number on a car, would you rather it be one you've been servicing or you haven't been servicing?
Absolutely.
I mean, these are huge things that you can, right.
I absolutely agree. So looking at some of the other things that a variable person would want to know, or another department would want to know. There's all these acronyms, right? The automotive business is full of acronyms, and every single department, whether it's variable, fixed, corporate, whatever it might be.
Sure. Give me one. Quiz me.
ELR.
Effective labor rate.
Right.
What is that? That's a good one. I love that one, by the way.
Why would you need to know it?
Who should need to know it?
Yeah.
Should the variable manager need to know what ELR is, stands for, means? How can they affect it?
Yeah.
Should the variable managers know?
Yep.
What is an effective labor rate? Should your variable managers know what your labor rate is?
Right.
Is that important?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about this, right?
Yep.
So let me ask you, what is, for instance, just as an example, a typical labor rate?
Generally, it's so it could be a dollar amount or a percentage. So it's the amount of dollars that we retain compared to what you're charging the client. So what your door rate is. Now, lots of things can go into it, warranty rates and consumer rates, advertising specials, how many quick services you're doing versus full engine repairs.
Sure.
So when I'm thinking of the variable side, it's your effective labor rate's really dependent on what your customer satisfaction is like. Are you having a discount? Are you getting enough organic traffic where you're not having to do a lot of marketing specials and so forth? So if you're doing a good job on the variable side and you're setting the clients up, you're talking about the benefits of your store, you're setting that first appointment so that they can continue to come in and be regular traffic as opposed to having to spend dollars to bring them in,
Sure.
then you're helping your service department with their effective labor rate.
Wow, what a great explanation. As you were talking, I'm thinking, how would I describe it? And
Yeah.
you did a really good job.
Close.
That was really good. And I'm going to back up just a hair on
Yep.
that topic, because should you know what your competitors, especially in a certain radius around your store, are charging as a door rate? Should you know what their door rate is? Should you know what they're charging for? You said quick service,
Yeah.
right? So is that an oil change?
Yeah.
Okay, so should you know what they're charging for a lube, oil, and filter, right? So those are important things that I think the variable managers, just as we're talking, the variable managers can bring to, Lucky, here's a piece of your question. What can you bring as a variable manager to service? If you make all the phone calls as a variable managers of the competitors around you and you know what they're charging for certain things. What do they charge for tires? What do they charge for an oil change, a rotation, an alignment, whatever service it is? Have 4 or 5 of those and then go back and talk to your service manager or your lane manager. Here's what our competitors are charging. That's important. Those are things that we need to know. Should we do specials? Like, do we do specials in the new car side? Do we come up with great advertising, marketing plays for specials? Should we be doing that in service? And does that affect your effective labor rate?
Yes.
You
Absolutely does.
See where I'm going with
Absolutely
this?
does.
Like my brain's all over the place on this one.
No, and then there's different products, right? Our warranty uptick company that we use, they go through different line items, and they're trying to help you with that as well. And it would be interesting if you had your variable managers involved, because it literally goes through. It's trying to figure out which of your ROs are not lining up correctly. Like, do you charge on Mondays a different price for air cabin filters than you do on Thursdays? Do you have any weaknesses, right? On the sales side, that when a month ends, it's going to be a slow start. Service, if you do it correctly, service should have very busy month end and then a very slow start because you're trying to close out the month. There's a month end close to service, just like there's a month end close to the sales side.
Nobody ever talks about that.
No, they don't. But that's how much they're similar to each other.
Sure.
But going back to those things, if your variable manager's on, because when we do our whole store meeting, we get together once a month. I put all the managers in one place, and we pick apart each other's departments. How were the financials? How was the production for the previous month? Are we overstaffed, understaffed, recruiting, the whole 9 yards? It's very interesting to see how that can affect the different departments. But this would be one that would be good. Why are you charging less for an air cabin filter? Mm-hmm. I was looking at that report from that third-party company, and it's saying that we need to up this. We're charging too much for this, and this. Make those decisions together. Because, again, used car departments run the same way. Am I an overpriced, lower volume used car department, or am I an underpriced, higher volume used car department because that's what my main goal is?
Yes. And which one should you be?
It's up to you.
I mean, those are all...
Or your owners probably may not be...
dictate that,
Yep.
right? But effective labor rate, what a good one. And I don't want, we could sit here and probably do an entire episode on effective labor rate and what affects your effective labor rate. I don't think we need to today.
No.
And if people want us to, we will. But we're just giving you a general idea. Give me another acronym we use in service.
HPRO.
Hours per repair order.
Yes.
Another good one.
Yes.
Right?
So what is it?
You know what? Do we sell time or do we sell something tangible in service?
In service, it's always time.
It's always time, right? So let's talk about that. How many hours per repair order is a standard, right? If somebody comes in just to do an oil change, and we're not upselling, are hours per RO going to be low or high?
Low.
Right? Low. But our goal is to sell more time, not to take advantage of a customer, to properly maintain their vehicle. And I think that's important to listen to for a second. We're not selling you anything. We're providing you maintenance for your vehicle that you should do.
Yeah.
And that requires time.
Yes.
And then when it gets into that time, we can go deeper and farther on what tech does that time.
Yeah.
Right? That also affects a lot of things too. But you said HPRO, hours per repair order. Yeah. What is the standard? What is the metric that, for instance, the NADA says, if you get to this hours per RO, you're doing a good job? What is that number?
So we need to remember to go back to ELR because we didn't hit that one either for what the metric would be. But hours per RO, I think it's 1.8.
You nailed it. That is what it is. It's 1.8. And what ELR? While we're here, what is the standard ELR? What are they looking for, the NADA?
So ELR is 80%, 90%?
If you get to 90%, then you're crushing it, okay? 80% is where typical dealers land, right? And real quick, what lowers, what affects that the most to increase or decrease effective labor rate? What's the things or maybe two things that affect it the most?
Discounts and oil changes.
100%.
Yeah.
You just nailed it, right? Yeah. So what do you mean by discounts? Who's discounting, right? So should you have advisors that are allowed to do discounting or off-grid pricing?
Yeah.
Or should only the lane manager, the general manager, the service manager, who should be allowed to discount? And should you? Should you just say, you know what? I'm never discounting.
It sounds like a good topic to throw out for everybody to bid on. I mean, most people are going to tell you that you shouldn't discount, and it should only go to the manager, because if the manager's not involved, then there's no reason to do it. If you have a more seasoned staff, then you can let your staff. But I would guess 9 out of 10 stores, it's going to be the manager. But keep in mind, discounting is coupons as well. So that goes back to the advertising. So discounting, depending on your store, could be multiple things. So again, when we're talking about variable getting involved, you need to know what your store's expectations are, because NADA is one thing. How your store runs is a different, right? Are you a below average store or are you an above average store? Because ours, while the HPRO, we like to get to 1.8, our internal goal is 2. So when we say 1.8, we mean 1.8 hours, 2 hours, and an oil change is typically a fraction of an hour, whether it's 3/10, 5/10, 7/10. If you're doing a tire rotation too. So just know
or
that
alignment with it.
Yeah, and same with ELR. Your company may want 80%. So if your door rate is $100, 80% would be your effective labor rate would be either 80% or $80. Just so you know what to look for.
Good way to put that.
Yeah.
I appreciate you breaking it down that way.
Yeah.
I like that. So back to HPRO.
Yes.
Right? So doesn't it go to the walkarounds? If you're doing a walkaround, which we talk about all the time in sales, and I love that you this year are going to be doing a competition for your stores with walkarounds in service. I love that, by the way, right? The better the walkaround, the higher the HPRO. Yes?
That's a contributor, yeah.
I mean, isn't that the huge contributor?
Yeah.
If you're truly showing the customer the maintenance that's scheduled but from the manufacturer, the OEM, here's what they recommend at this time, and you're doing a great walk around to show them what's wrong with their vehicle, the tire depths, doing the dabs, doing all the things you're supposed to do in your walk around, your hours per RO is what you're chasing. 1.8 is not hard to get to if you do everything correctly. There's the big word, if. I challenge you, walk into your service department and watch. Stand there for 10 minutes at 7:35 in the morning, and you tell me how many cars got to walk around. I challenge everybody listening right now and watching the show. Do that tomorrow morning when you go into your store. Yep. Don't throw up.
Yes. Well, and so another contributor would be, and this is why it's good for somebody outside to look in, another contributor could be the actual inspections themselves. If you do an oil change, and you do it perfectly, you're not going to get to 2 hours per RO. It's not possible. But it's that inspection and the recommended services that get you there. So, if I'm on the outside looking in, why are we only selling oil changes? Because if we're doing the right thing for the customer, your air cabin filter, unless I look at it, is not going to get changed.
Yes.
If you're the regular maintenance. My favorite one is asking people, especially people with higher mileage vehicles, when did you do your transmission service? That is one, if you don't do it, this is the craziest thing to me. Everything that we look at on a car, you have to fix. You have to do maintenance. You have to follow up on. That's the one thing. If you miss your transmission service, they actually recommend you do not ever do it. So that's one of the wild things, and it's done at such a high mileage interval that you forget to do it. But your technicians and your advisors need to be suggesting these recommended services. Again, I do all my maintenance, and I have several friends that do no maintenance on their cars. That's for you to decide. Am I going to own this car for a short term?
Wild to me.
But it's out there, right?
Yes.
And that's why we have an average, too, because some customers, I'm not doing my transmission service. I'm not doing my coolant flush. Brakes, who needs to worry about doing a brake flush? They're not going to do it at all. Brakes work or they don't work, right? I wasn't taught properly.
Yeah.
But those are the cool pieces to look at to make sure that you're doing everything. Because, again, we go through cycles. I mean, your lube tech, you have different levels of motivations for them. You have one that he's going to pop open the air cabin filter every time, and you have another one, or the engine air filter, and you have another one that's never going to open it. And if you don't see those being recommended, then you need to get involved. If your service manager isn't getting it, it's one of you. Go back and see how many engine air filters you sold, and if you haven't sold any in a while, you're not doing inspections, and that's a great one. And those decline services, that's another one that you could get involved, help the service department. When you're doing those phone calls, hey, saw that you declined a few things. Again, keep it in mind for your next visit. Looks like you did have tires on there. Tires typically are a day turnaround. So I know that you just waited for this one, but make sure that you get one of our free loaner cars when you come in next time.
Yes, and which is another topic, but you just reminded me of one as you were talking.
Yeah.
And I steal this from you because I have the privilege of going to many of your meetings. Not
Yes.
all of them, but I love to come to your meetings.
Yeah.
As you know, right? Hard for me not to talk. Go figure.
Yes.
Right? So, you always say it. When we talked about this in the last episode, it's not how many cars we sold; it's how many cars we didn't sell. It's not how many leads we got to; it's how many leads we didn't get to.
Yeah.
And it's reminding me right now in the service department. It's not how many cabin air filters we sold; it's how many we didn't sell. It's not how many rotations that we recommended; it's how many we didn't. Right? Yeah. Isn't that the same thing again? 100%. Sales to service.
Yeah, and as we wrap up this episode, it's another part of this puzzle. It's quit worrying about selling, quit worrying about talking about these things that customers need. You're not recommending anything that they don't. You're recommending the stuff that's either on the regular schedule or, again, with engine air filters. Sometimes if you live in a rural area, you're naturally, you have mice that will build nests in there. I mean, that's where you're pulling all the air into the engine, yes. Right? And generally, it's got a pretty big opening, and there's not a lot of stuff to restrict it because you need large amounts of airflow. So, we find leaves and mouse
droppings,
all sorts of stuff in there. So again, these are the things, and it's one thing you can pull out and show to somebody too. So it's
this is one, and I know we're trying to wrap up here because I could talk all day about
service.
You know me, I love service, right?
Yep.
So, and we're just scraping the surface. We're not even deep diving into any of these. But as you go through these things, I just think to myself, okay, so I have a customer in front of me, and I'm going to recommend all of these services. You keep using recommended services, and I love that because they are the recommended services. Yeah. Like your doctor recommends when you get your shots, right? These are things you're supposed to follow or are recommended to follow, right? Yeah. You have customers that will say they're trying to sell me something. And I love this where you can say, nope, I'm just showing you what the recommended services are. You can blame it on the OEM. Yeah. You don't have to blame it on anybody. I'm just going through your recommended services. Because I will tell you this. If a customer leaves and something happens, their brakes are struggling, whatever it is, and they say to you, you didn't recommend me doing the brake pads the last 2 times in service,
right?
Then you're in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to be recommending all of the services. And then, can you reach back out to all of the declined services?
Yes.
Here's all the people that said, I don't want that. I need to talk to my spouse. I'll do it next time. Should we be reaching out to these customers? Say, hey, listen, you turn these down. No worries. You're coming in next Tuesday. Would you like us to go over these while you're here again?
Yes.
Are these important things we can do for our customers?
Super, super important. And again, if there's any customers that are not mechanically inclined, please, by all means, have a conversation with your advisor. Our advisors are trained. We tell you what you need to have, what you should have, and what you can wait on. Again, you decide where you fit in that puzzle.
Yes.
But again, I promise you, if you're asking the questions, you're going to get good advice back.
And we, there's so many more topics. I'd like you guys to reach out to us again, just like Lucky did last time, and several other people for our other episodes, and we'll do that. But we can get into the distribution of work. We can get into aren't there 3 different types of ours that we write in service, right? We have our customer pay, we have our warranty pay, we have our internal or our used cars, right? We can get into all the different sorts of service, but for today, I feel like we touched how can a variable manager dip his toes into service? Because when you're a GSM, I know that's GSM, people think front of the house, right? New and used cars, finance, office, controller, intervention. But shouldn't a GSM be very involved in the service department if they want to be the GM of a store, right? We can get into all of these things in future episodes.
Absolutely. So again, thank you everybody for tuning in. But again, if this is your first time watching, please go back to episode 1 and it'll tell you all about who Paul and I am and what these episodes are all about. But thank you again. Can't wait to see you next time.
See you guys.